Greetings, innovators and leaders. This is AI for the C-Suite, your compass for navigating the exponential age. I'm Chad Harvey, and we're here to bring you cutting-edge insights on AI tailored specifically for middle market organizations. Buckle up as we embark on a journey through the transformative world of artificial intelligence. Today, we're joined by Papi Menon, Vice President and Chief Product Officer of Outshift by Cisco. Papi leads their emerging technology incubation initiatives, and with over 2 decades of experience building and scaling world-class tech products, Papi brings a unique perspective on AI's transformative potential. He's played pivotal roles at companies that have shaped modern software development and cloud infrastructure, including leadership positions at HashiCorp, GitHub, Docker, and MuleSoft. At Outshift, Papi is spearheading Cisco's ventures into generative AI, recently launching Motific, and you'll have to correct me if I'm not pronouncing that right, a platform that helps organizations navigate the complexities of enterprise AI deployment. His deep technical background, starting as a kernel engineer and evolving through various product leadership roles, gives him valuable insights into both the technical foundations and business implications of AI. Today, he's particularly focused on what he calls the Internet of Agents, a vision for how AI agents will fundamentally reshape our technological infrastructure. Papi, welcome to AI for the C-Suite.
Thank you, Chad. Very good to be here.
We are very excited to have you and very excited to start unpacking and digging into this idea of AI agents. And prior to the episode being recorded here, you and I were having some conversation, and I mentioned that there seems to be a lot of confusion around the term agents, agentic AI. So why don't we start there, because it's a hot topic in 2025. What are AI agents?
So AI agents, if you think about how AI first developed, when you talked about, ChatGPT came along, and the first time that the public really got to know about AI and started interacting with it, those were really very basic AI assistants. And you could ask questions, you could have the questions answered by AI, but with limited context, with limited multi-step reasoning going into creating those responses. What we have seen in the past few months here is the evolution of that from simple assistants and that can answer basic questions with limited context to evolution into AI agents. And agents are much more autonomous. They can carry a lot more context. They can deal with non-probabilistic intent. They can do multi-shot reasoning. They can carry a lot of state within the way that they go about answering or responding to the queries that are put in front of them. So they truly they have more agency, in other words, right? They carry more context, they have deeper understanding, they can do multi-shot reasoning, etc. And carry a lot more context than simple assistants, as we used to call them. So this is really the next step in the evolution of AI capabilities. And what we are now seeing is, agents now being able to collaborate and talk to other agents to solve complex problems. And so this is the next step that we are seeing in the evolution of AI capabilities. And it's been a big transformational wave, to be honest. And this is what we are so excited about. We are calling it the Internet of Agents for a reason.
And I want to unpack what that means. Before we do, I want to level set the conversation, because you and I, we're in this all the time. I'm having conversations constantly with folks, and sometimes I take for granted some of the jargon that's developed. So I want you to unpack just briefly for us what you mean when you say multi-shot and what you also mean when you say context, because those have very specific meanings that I'm not sure everyone in our audience fully appreciates.
Yeah, so what I mean by multi-shot reasoning is when you talk to a simple AI assistant, like, when you have a conversation, for example, with something like ChatGPT, you ask it a question and it gives you an answer, right? But it doesn't have the ability to carry context within that and be able to take ambiguous, situations and analyze it through a multi-stage step of reasoning, carry that context forward, and carry multiple levels of state within it for that reasoning. This is what an agent can do. So when we talk about assistants versus agents, an agent can address situations that have like non-deterministic intent, that have probabilistic outcomes, and can do that with, carrying a large amount of state that is multimodal, whether, and carry a great deal of context. So there's a fundamental difference between how agents operate versus what simple assistants used to be able to do. And this is what we talk about. So they can essentially, in a very autonomous, independent fashion, solve complex problems that require carrying a great deal of internal state to understand and respond to differing situations.
Thank you. I appreciate the primer there, and I know that a number of folks in our audience will as well. So, thank you. When you talk about the Internet of Agents and where your vision for how things are going to progress will unfold, I have to ask, you've had a front row seat to a lot of major technological shifts through the different roles that you've had in your entire career. And what is driving this idea of Internet of Agents, and how is this AI revolution that we are witnessing here, and we all have a front row seat to, how is this different than some of the previous tech transformations that you've witnessed?
So this is, I think, a natural evolution in these, I see this as a natural progression in the wave of technological changes that have happened, right? So if you think about it, very early on, we had the internet where you allowed machines to be able to talk to each other. And, that was Cisco was in the front row of that revolution, and that was a very transformational change when it happened. Then we had the cloud transformation, which happened, right? Which was again a big transformational change that layered onto the internet, where you now had cloud services that you could spin up. We had the container revolution that happened. We had a whole slew of businesses and come up that were cloud native. We had the Kubernetes and the Cloud Native Compute Foundation, and all of that happened, right? Which was the next transformational wave. And we see this agentic wave and the Internet of Agents as something that is similar, perhaps even dwarfing those in the impact that it's going to have, because we are going to have these autonomous agents that can talk to each other to solve complex problems, that can discover capabilities that are out there in the world, and applications of very complex applications that can be broken down and solved by autonomous agents working independently. So we see this as the next kind of transformational wave that is building on the previous waves, like the basic internet wave, and then there was the cloud native wave, and now we see the Internet of Agents as that next transformational wave that is happening. So it is evolutionary in a sense. It is building on previous waves, but it is also revolutionary. It is going to be a very massive transformation in how the world of software works.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the things that comes up an awful lot in conversations is when we're talking about middle market companies, and we're talking about folks that don't have quite the resources of a Fortune 1000 firm, or they might be a little bit more resource constrained. What are some of the lessons from previous technical transitions that you've observed that middle market leaders and companies should be thinking about or potentially applying as they're considering AI, and as we look toward the next evolution of AI here with AI agents?
Yeah, so for smaller companies, for smaller players, what really they should be looking at is what gives them the maximum optionality, right? So we've seen that over and over. Whenever there is a big technology wave that happens, there will be a few key players in that, and because of the nature of what they do, there is a tendency to consolidate and build, walled gardens, if you will, right, around their offerings. And and that's a natural instinct. But at the same time, there are other companies like Cisco whose natural instinct is to build bridges, right? Like and build bridges across these moats. And for smaller players, it's important to recognize that that these open standards, these bridges that cross modes, give them the optionality in how they want to run their business, right? And so that is something that we are super focused on. We've seen this over and over again with the first version of the internet, and then the cloud revolution, and now we are starting to see it again with the with the agentic transformation that's happening, there are these natural, complementary forces. And I don't see them as good or bad. There's great value to being part of a walled garden, right? Like there's deep integrations, there's value-added offerings that can be brought about. But Cisco's natural tendency is to create bridges between those modes, bridges across those modes, I mean, and to connect those walled gardens. So for smaller players, it's important that you retain the optionality to pick, in this case, for example, right? You want to pick the best model that suits your use case, right? Whatever business problem you're trying to solve in the domain that you are operating in, you want to be able to pick the right tools for the problem that you want to solve. And you want to have the optionality for that and stitch them together in the way that best suits your business and gives you the ability to differentiate from the competition. You want to retain the optionality to do that, and you don't want to be constrained in your choices. What that means is you want to have an open ecosystem of tools that are out there that solve your problem in the best way and allows you to differentiate and innovate, right? And so we are working towards that.
Mm-hmm. I think that explanation that you just gave and that answer lends perfectly to where we need to go in this conversation here today, which is starting to unpack some of what Cisco's proposing and what you've outlined and what's outlined in the paper titled "The Internet of Agents" that's been published. And I know that there's kind of three key components there. So why don't you walk us through that? And I would really like to get a better understanding from you about the idea that we need a new internet infrastructure for AI as well. So walk us through kind of the three different components and the three levels, and then let's talk a little bit about where this is going and what this looks like, because I really liked your answer about it's not good or bad, it's not black or white, it's not right or wrong, it's just choices between walled gardens and building bridges and making decisions that are best for your organization based on the value and the use case. So I'll dial all that back and I'll just say, unpack this paper for me a little bit, and then let's talk about this idea of a new infrastructure necessary to accommodate agentic AI.
Yeah, happy to do that. So really, for us, it comes down to what is the approach that unlocks maximal value for all players in this ecosystem, right? So there are people who are building infrastructure, people like Cisco, people who are building tools that help with this, connecting, securing, managing, discovering agents that are out there, building agents themselves, building and training agents. And then people who are building applications that sit on top of this. And how do we make sure that all of this can work together in a way that builds the maximal value for the whole ecosystem? And so we firmly believe that that is done by having an open standard, which allows people to create AI applications using all of these different components. And that's what we are loosely calling as the Internet of Agents. So a few key components of that, for example, you want to be able to, the first and foremost thing is you want to be able to have a way that you can discover what agents are out there. You want agents to be able to advertise their capabilities, and you want other agents and applications to be able to discover what are the agents out there, what are their capabilities, and so on. You want to be able to then have some way that agents can communicate, that they can talk about, have state exchange, that they can explain what it is that they can do, what it is that they want from other agents, and be able to communicate securely. So that is the second piece. And then you want to be able to have some way that you can have cross-domain collaboration. You want to be able to have agents that can, talk to other agents, exchange state, and do so in a way that is secure. And another area of this that we are talking about when it comes to security is another transformational wave in parallel, which we are also emphasizing when we talk about the whole Internet of Agents, philosophy here is another big transformational wave that is happening right now is quantum, and that is another area that Cisco has been focused on and we have been looking at as well, which is, quantum security is super important. We know that, we are making the various players in the space, including Cisco, have been making great strides in quantum computing. And we want to make sure that whatever fundamental protocols we put in place for agentic communications are also quantum safe. So they're future-proofed against the coming wave of quantum developments as well. So we want to make sure that agents can discover each other's capabilities, that they can do secure state exchange, and then they can collaborate in a way that is quantum safe. So these are kind of the principles that we want to put together as we are talking about this Internet of Agents framework and how agents can discover, collaborate, communicate with each other to solve complex problems.
That is no small order, especially given the difficulty humans have in communicating, discovering, and collaborating, let alone the fact that a great many leaders still don't know what an API is, let alone how to get their ERP software, talk to their CRM, to talk to their finance. So this sounds very interesting. What are the limitations in our current infrastructure that are going to become really critical as AI systems evolve? Because I would imagine you step back, you took a look at this, and some of those gaps and those cracks are what provided some initial conversational fodder for this idea of the three-pronged approach that you're taking regarding discoverability, communication, and cross-domain collaboration.
Right. So, one of the big things right now is most of the systems today, if you think about um, the, the the way systems collaborate today, right? The agents are fundamentally different in the way that they talk to each other. They're probabilistic in their outcome. They're non-deterministic in their intent. And the way they exchange state, it's multimodal, right? Like there's going to be all different types of information exchange that is happening between agents. And so all of this needs to be factored in. This is very different from how, people often ask, hey, when we talk about agents communicating with each other or the Internet of Agents, how is that different from like APIs? We went through the API revolution, where computer systems can talk to each other through APIs. And it is very different because APIs ultimately have a very well-defined surface area. And you know exactly, when you call an API, you know exactly what you're going to get. With agents, it's different. It is going to be a much more open-ended conversation. It is much more non-deterministic in nature. And so you need to have standards and protocols that allow you to leverage that, take advantage of that, but not being constrained by it. So we need to have ways that agents can advertise their capabilities, that we can understand and have some confidence that when an agent says it does something, that it is actually doing that. How do we actually talk to it? And how do these agents then discover each other's capabilities and collaborate on solving more complex problems together, right? So these are all standards that we need to define. And we need to set the guardrails in place so that, the right outcomes are being arrived at, the right kind of assurance is being provided that the agent actually does what it claims to do, that there is a way that we can we can measure the outcomes and make sure that whatever the agent said it will do is actually what it did, right? Like, so there's a whole bunch of different standards and guardrails that we need to put in place to enable this kind of open automated collaboration between agents to happen. And this is what, when we talk about Internet of Agents, it's a very simple way of encapsulating all of these standards that need to happen, that need to happen to make this real. So this is a huge potential. There's huge potential here for agents to autonomously collaborate and solve complex problems. But there are a whole bunch of standards and guardrails that we need to put in place as well to make sure that it is actually doing what it says it will do, right? So these are the things that we are putting together. So when we talk about the Internet of Agents, it is all of these standards, all of these protocols, all of these conventions that we are putting together along, and we are working with others, like-minded other companies as well, to make this a reality. There's huge potential here, but there's also it's a vast, wide open space right now, and we need to put some standards and protocols in place so that we can derive maximal value from it without while also solving real world business problems.
Mm-hmm. I Couldn't agree more. Papi, you speak like an engineer, but I think you've got the soul of a poet. You spoke to me earlier a minute ago when you uttered the phrase that the work these agents are going to do is non-deterministic in nature, and I think that that is an exhilarating and a terrifying statement simultaneously, because we're still grappling with the power of generative AI, and now we're talking about autonomy and semi-autonomous systems, and giving them work that's non-deterministic in nature is both liberating as well as terrifying, quite frankly, I think, for a lot of people. And that goes directly to what you talked about in terms of the guardrails that we're putting in. How how do you build guardrails into a system when we're already talking about, and I know the terms are very loosely defined when we throw around terms like AGI and super intelligent AGI and things like that, but how do you build guardrails and put them in place for tools that are just now coming online, but that will have the capability to evolve almost exponentially over the next couple of years?
Well, that is the billion-dollar question, isn't it? So I don't have a pat answer for you, Chad. I mean, this is something that we are still working on with a bunch of partners, right? Like this is again the reason why we are approaching this as an open source effort. We are approaching this as a community effort because I don't think this is it's a collective problem that I think a lot of us need to put our minds together to solve. I think you hit the nail on the head. This is going to be a really hard nut to crack. And it's not something that's one and done, right? It's not because agents are continuing to evolve. It's not like you can just set a protocol in place and then it's done. No, these agents are going to continue to evolve in capabilities that we have seen the models just increase and get more efficient. We just saw that recently with so we've seen the whole industry just evolve in the direction of more efficient models, just increasing in capability. So this is a continual effort that the whole community of builders and enterprises who are in the space need to come together and define common standards where we have these guardrails in place, right? Like we need to make sure that we allow agents to continue to evolve in their capabilities while also having some guardrails in place so that you know, uh, they don't go completely haywire. So this is the whole thing, and the whole idea of the Internet of Agents is to enable companies to come together to create those common standards to make sure that agents are operating in the best possible way, that they're collaborating to optimal outcomes, and working together more efficiently while at the same time constraining what they can do so that they don't go completely haywire, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the whole idea is to build standards that allows this safe interoperability to happen and collaboration between agents to happen.
Mm-hmm. For our audience, if you wouldn't mind, maybe walk me through one or two brief examples of what you would envision a common standard would look like. Maybe not the super technical details, but at a little bit of a higher level. What would a common standard look like in the approach that you're proposing?
Yeah, so a common standard, for example, one would be just what we are calling a manifest, a way to describe what an agent can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even just being able to do that. So that would be a standard way for agents to describe and to advertise their capabilities, to say, these are the things that I can do. These are the kinds of inputs that I take. These are the kinds of languages I speak. This is the way in which I interact with the world. These are the things that I'm capable of doing. Um, and so that then is the foundation for how agents can discover other agents that they may need. So if you want to have, for example, if you want to solve a complex business problem, you want to have agents that can do various things. So for example, if you're talking about a drug discovery, problem, just as an example, you might want to have agents that can do protein modeling. You might want to have agents that can do cost modeling. You can do things like safety checking, etc. So there are a bunch of different things that are involved in drug discovery, and you want to have a way that agents can advertise their capabilities, that other agents can discover what's out there in terms of what capabilities they can then go out and find. And then you want to have, so this is, to come back to to a very concrete question that you asked. So that would be one component of the whole Internet of Agents that we are talking about. A way for agents to advertise their capabilities and be discovered by other agents, which can then be, which can then collaborate into creating what we call the multi-agent application, right? So that's one piece of it, right? And then there are many other pieces of it. So you need to be able to have a way that a service whereby you can advertise these capabilities. You want to have a way that these can be stitched together into complex workflows. You want to have so there's a whole bunch of different components that fall out of it. And and we're working through that with several partners to like flesh out the architecture and all of that. But that's just one component that I mentioned, where how do agents advertise their capabilities and be discovered, and how do they discover other agents in turn?
That's very helpful. I think that gives us some very good context and helps make real what we're talking about in terms of this open architecture. You talked in your example that you gave me just now, and you threw out the idea of novel drug discovery. And it made me wonder here, I tend to skew more toward the 5-level framework that Sam Altman gave when he had that interview with Bloomberg Media back in the fall of 24 about where things are going. And just for our viewers, that's, level 1 is kind of generative AI chatbot. Level 2 is the reasoners. Level 3 is agentic. Level 4 is more innovators or novel, like the drug research that you were talking about. And then 5 is kind of the holy grail of organizational AGI. How I mention this because I'm interested. How do you and how does Cisco view the evolution of artificial intelligence? Because we're talking a lot about agents, but as I just ran through, that's kind of level 3 here in terms of what a lot of folks think of in the evolution and development of artificial intelligence. Do you view AI development along that 5-tier level? Do you have a different schema that you guys use? What are you cooking up there, and how do you view it?
Well, I think we have a slightly different point of view when it comes to, I think OpenAI and their point of view is definitely in the direction of increasing capabilities of AI to the point where you have AGI, right? Like a general intelligence that can do everything. We see the world in much more our core as a networking company, our roots, Cisco's, our philosophy is very different. We see a world where multiple entities of different varying capabilities can all coexist and can collaborate to solve complex problems. So it's not about one super intelligence that can do everything. We see it much more in terms of, and I think we are starting to see some of the early indications that our worldview is probably going to at least, if not prevail, at least be also another reality that happens. And these two don't have to be either or, right?
Sure.
Like they can coexist. So we see a fragmentation of models happening with multiple models, very efficient ones that are very domain specific, that are smaller, can run more, using much less resources. You're definitely seeing the bigger models that have been created by the big players that can that cost a lot of money to train and develop and so on. So we see a fragmentation in the world of capabilities, and our goal is not to, we don't want to pick a winner here in any specific domain. What we want to do is build those foundational technologies that allow all of these to interoperate. That's Cisco's philosophy, right? Like we connect people, we connect machines. We are in the business of connecting people and building open standards to enable that to happen. That's been our roots. That's been our philosophy as a company. We are extending that philosophy into the world of agents as well. So we are not in the business of saying this model or that one will win, or this will be the right size. Or we want a world of a multitude of models, whether it is, you train it yourself that's running in your data center, whether it is a cloud service that you're talking to, whether it's a domain specific one, whether it's a more of a general purpose one, they can all work together to solve complex problems. Our goal is to make those common standards, just like we had the common standards for the internet. This is who Cisco is, right? Like we had the common standards like BGP and TCP over IP and things of that nature, which laid the foundation for the internet. And when we call it the Internet of Agents, that's a very deliberate choice of words, and that's a very deliberate choice of concepts because it is foundational to what we do. What we want to do is enable a proliferation, a Cambrian explosion of agents to happen, all different types, all sizes, capabilities, modes of operation, deployment models, what have you. And they can all collaborate using common standards to solve complex problems in a way that is greater than the sum of its parts. That's the vision, right? And we want to, that's who we are. That's who Cisco is. It's very deeply rooted in our DNA as a company. And we want to enable that for the world of agents as well.
Papi, I'm going to double down on my statement from earlier. I think you do have the soul of a poet. You turned quite a phrase. Uh, Along the lines of what you were just sharing with me, paint a picture for me. Let's say I'm just going to wing this. Let's say I'm a CEO of a middle market company. Maybe I'm in distribution. Maybe I'm in manufacturing. We've got revenues, I don't know, $400, $500 million. So we're not tiny, we're not small business, but we're not huge, right? Mm-hmm. What does my world look like circa 2030 or 2032 when the Internet of Agents exists? How is my operation going to function, and what role are these tools going to play in there? How does it look from your future forecasting seat?
Yeah, forecasting the future is always a very risky business, Chad, and I try to stay away from it, right?
You're not going to fall into my trap.
No, but I'm going to give some general principles,
Perfect.
right? Like I don't think I want to get into specifics because again, you outlined a very general scenario, right? Like a $500 million business, we don't know what kind of business it's in and precisely what they do. However, we do know that the world of agents is going to be a transformational force across all industries. Right now, the specifics of your industry may determine the precise degree of impact it may have. But regardless of what business you're in, this wave is coming and you have to be prepared, right? Mm-hmm. So the way to think that is first and foremost is to drive business efficiencies through the use of agents, right? Like where can you put agents to use to drive efficiencies? And again, we have a point of view on this. If I were to talk to that business leader today, I would say, give yourself optionality here, right? Because this is a wave that is still, it is still forming, and there are many ways that this can play out. So as a business leader, preparing for the future, your goal should be to give yourself optionality in case, for different scenarios that may play out. So you want to be in a world where your business can absorb and take advantage of a multitude of different types of models that can address efficiencies in different parts of your business. So, for example, you may want to use certain types of, agentic help in your business forecasting, some in your sales process, some in your, in your financials, etc. You need to be thinking about it for all of these different aspects of your business, but give yourself the optionality that you can use the right tool for the job and not get, fixated on any specific technology, right? Like to me, that's when anytime there is a nascent wave forming that has the potential to transform your business, your goal as a leader should be to give yourself optionality, right? Like that is the one thing you don't want to lock yourself into something that you may regret later, right? And so again, tying this back to the work that we are doing, when we talk about open standards, when we talk about interoperability between different agents, this is what we are trying to do, right? Like we are trying to make sure, just like we did with the internet, right? The internet was all about again, people tend to forget, the internet is such an open ecosystem of standards today that people tend to forget that it could have evolved in a very different direction. If you look at the early days of the internet, it could have evolved into a series of walled gardens, very early on. That was a choice that companies like Cisco, I'm proud to say, helped shape, right? It helped shape that future by building these standards, these open standards that enabled, machines and to connect with each other in an open, interoperable way and help set the direction for the internet, right? This is the same thing that is going to happen. So, and that's again why we choose to call this the Internet of Agents, right? So this same kind of transformational wave was happening now with AI and agents. And For a business leader, your focus should be on giving your business the optionality that it needs for the future. So set yourself up in a way, adopt the technologies and the products that allow you to make concrete progress today while giving yourself optionality for the future.
I
So
think
that
that
should be the goal.
that is a excellent bit of advice there, and I think that's the needle that everybody's got to thread right now: is how do we preserve options? How do we not back the wrong horse or make investments that 24 or 36 months from now look foolish in light of new information and systems?
That's absolutely right. And it is a tough place to be as a business leader because you have this transformational wave that is happening. And you don't want to miss the wave, but
Right.
you don't want to be crushed by it
That's
either, right?
right.
Like so, it's all of those things, and but it is also this is the reason why we are in technology, right? This is such an exciting time to be involved if you're a decision maker, if you're a business leader, what better time to be alive? This is a major transformational wave that is happening, and if you're yeah, I'm excited by it, and I'm sure everyone else is as well. This is a great thing, and we just need to make sure that we arm people with the right information, give them the optionality that they need to surf it safely.
Agreed. You've mentioned walled gardens, and I love that phrase a couple times in our conversation today, and you even gave it recently in your most recent answer here to a question of mine. One of the things that I've been seeing is a lot of ink spilled about the idea of a consolidation of the internet into the main foundation models and a reconsolidation of all the content. I think there's some statistics out there that indicate that approximately 75 or 80% of the internet has been consumed by these different models. And I wonder how this drive toward consolidated content in the main frontier or foundation models plays with what we're talking about here in terms of the Internet of Agents. If that trend continues, what do you think the impact will be on an open infrastructure and the Internet of Agent kind of future that you are envisioning and that Cisco is talking about?
Yeah, I think that these are I think there are two worldviews here, right? Like we've heard, and I think you mentioned the quote by Sam Altman earlier, about the AGI and one intelligence or one model or one AI to rule them all, right? Like it can do everything,
It's very
it can
Lord of the
recite
Rings of you,
poetry,
Papi.
and it can write Terraform code, and it can do, and it can solve complex business problems and all of that, right? So that's one worldview. And the other is that this is going to be a fragmented world, right? And I think that is definitely the worldview that we have, right? We see it as being models that are fit for purpose, right? Like it is not going to be the case that there will be, you know, um, one huge model that can write poetry and also run your infrastructure and also do your business forecasting and all of that, right? Like we see this as being much more of a fragmented world, and I think we are starting to see the um, early indications of that happening already, which is smaller, more efficient models that are tightly focused on a particular domain that are trained on specific data sets that can, and I gave that example earlier, right, of, scientific data or something that is trained in a very specific domain. So we see that fragmented world of models as being something closer to what will happen. And these models can then collaborate with each other, right? These agents can collaborate with each other to create an outcome that's greater than the sum of its parts. And that is the fundamental thesis of the Internet of Agents, that we are going to see a proliferation of agents. It's going to be a Cambrian explosion. There's going to be a lot of different agents, different sizes, different domains, trained on different data. It is not going to be like this one agent to rule them all, an AGI type of agent. There may be those as well. We're not saying that cannot be, that there won't be these super agents, but we see them as more being a proliferation of agents that are, very domain specific, that have deep expertise in one area, that have contextual understanding of a particular problem space, and can then collaborate with other agents to solve complex problems, right? And so this perhaps because of our roots as a networking company, this is how we see the world. We see the world as a place where multiple entities collaborate to solve complex problems and deliver outcomes that are greater than the sum of its parts, right? This is core to who we are, and I think we are taking that same philosophy and making it real with our vision of the Internet of Agents.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate what I'm going to call your rigorous adherence to the mission of the organization that you're with. I think that is all too lacking oftentimes. It doesn't matter if I'm talking with a technology leader or a farmer, right? A lot of times that is lacking in terms of where do we focus our energy and what is our North Star. So I really appreciate you returning to that worldview. And along those lines, one of the things that we haven't unpacked here, and I'd like to get to before we end our conversation, is the issue of quantum safe security and how Cisco views that and how you view that and how critical is that as we build this new infrastructure. Because I think that quantum computing and the idea of quantum computing is very poorly understood, perhaps even less well understood than artificial intelligence and all its various permutations. So maybe give us a 60-second primer on what we're talking about when we talk about quantum computing, and then segue into this question that I've posed to you about quantum safe security and its role in this Internet of Agents. So I know that's a tall order, but you can do it.
I will try. I don't know if I can do it. I work with some quantum is one of those things where, there's a limit to which I understand it, and then it becomes it's the dark arts, it's a
Yeah.
real, it becomes very, very technical very quickly. But
You've just
I'll
made me
try.
feel very much better because I feel the same way. There's a level at which I'm like, dark arts, yes.
Yes, I mean, it's quantum, right? Like, you don't know, it's a quantum leap at that point. So, but we have some very smart people who are working on it, so and I rely on them. So I will try not to, uh, you know, uh, not to fall over myself here, but and keep it simple, to the stuff that I understand. When it comes to making computers communicate in a quantum safe manner, um, one of the things that we are working with is collaborating with our Cisco research team. We do have a research lab down in Santa Monica where we have a real quantum setup, a lab where we can simulate some of these quantum interactions. And we've been working on things like secure quantum key exchange, quantum cryptography. We are exploring, we are working with our research team to push the frontiers of those areas. And we are working on ways that we can bring these things to market in a way that accelerates the state of the industry and makes us all quantum safe in how we communicate.
Very good. All right. I think that also begs one of the last questions I wanted to ask you, which is about investment and the economic implications of this transition, right? So I just asked you about quantum computing, and you gave a very thoughtful answer, and that's kind of out on that 5-10 year timeline horizon. It's a little bit more nebulous as opposed to some of what we're seeing right now with the changeover with AI and agentic AI. So what do you see as some of the economic implications right now that are part of this transition, and what kind of opportunities and market changes do you see coming as a result of this shift?
These are both foundational shifts in the whole industry, right? If you think about agentic AI, what we are seeing is autonomous agents working together to solve complex business problems. And this is going to be a transformational wave, which is just starting to happen. And we still don't know the precise implications. It is going to transform and reshape the industry, right? Because a lot of things that we now rely on very manual integrations or very rudimentary forms of automation are now going to be completely autonomous in how they operate. And we are starting to see some of the early indications of that in how agents are starting to talk to each other and collaborate to solve complex problems. Quantum is this whole other thing that is going to be layered on top of that, right? Like these two waves are kind of happening together. And quantum is, I think, a little bit of a sleeper wave because everyone has been kind of distracted by what is happening with AI. And that has kind of taken over the public imagination. And everyone's talking about AI and agents and all of that. And at the same time, we've seen, Google with the Willow chip and, and some of the major advancements that have happened with quantum error correction and so on. There is a lot of progress being made on the quantum front as well. which has kind of been overshadowed by everything happening with AI. But we see both of those as being very complementary, which is why when we talk about within Cisco, within Outshift, when we talk about these two waves, we talk about them together all the time because we want it to be, we want the AI transformation to happen in a way that is quantum safe because these two waves are kind of building together. So yeah, these two are, both big technology transformations that are happening, and both are happening at the same time, and they're kind of complementing each other, So we need to keep our eye on both of those things because both are maturing very fast and kind of at the same time.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate your answer there, Papi, and it aligns very much not just with my worldview, but with what I think is happening in the larger technological world and society as a whole. Is we have multiple, and this is kind of the foundational bit of Azim Azar's book. We've got these foundational overlapping technologies that are developed at an exponential pace. They are working together in ways that we don't fully appreciate. So when you talk about that overlay, that really hits home for me. So I appreciate your answer there. I mentioned in our prior conversation before we started recording, I try not to go into Lex Fridman podcast territory. We're coming up almost on an hour here, so I want to land the plane, to use a tortured metaphor. But before we do, I want to ask you one final question here, and you can't go back to preserve options as your answer because that was a good answer, but I already heard it. So what is one piece of advice that you would give to C-suite executives that are looking to leverage AI in their organizations right now, understanding we're sitting here at the beginning of 2025 and the rest of the year is unfolding before us? So what's one piece of advice that you would give?
One piece of advice is go back to basics, right? You have to understand the business problem that you are trying to solve. At the end of the day, AI is just another tool, right? It is a powerful tool. It is a tool in your toolkit as a business leader. It is not a panacea. It doesn't take over understanding your business problem very concretely and detail, and then understanding where AI can make the most difference, right? And this is something that I talk to business leaders a lot in my role, and they span the spectrum of different types of businesses, different shapes and sizes, etc. And they always ask the question, what can AI do for me? Where should I focus first? And my answer always is, I can't tell you that. You need to look closely at your business, see how AI can help accelerate, understand this is not something that you can phone in, right? It's not a one size fits all type of answer. Your business and the needs of your business and where AI can make the most transformational. Don't get me wrong. Regardless of what type of business you're in, AI is going to transform it. This is happening, right? But at the same time, the precise shape of that transformation and where that is going to enter and make the most bang for the buck in terms of what you do is going to be very specific to your business. And there is not a single one size fits all answer. You have to deeply understand your business. You have to understand the capabilities of the AI solutions that are out there. And then you need to figure out how you can apply that to maximal use and maximum leverage in your business, right? There is not a one size fits all answer. So to the business leaders, I would say you need to pay attention to the uh, to the to the developments that are happening in AI. You need to pay attention to the solutions that are being built. Most importantly, you need to give yourself optionality for the future, right? Because this is still a wave that is forming. You don't know the precise way in which it is going to crash, or to build, I should say.
Yes.
Let's use the right analogy.
Yeah, that's right. It's a positive metaphor, yes.
Yeah, let's use a positive metaphor. You don't know precisely which direction you need to ride to get the most out of it, to accelerate your business. So you need to give yourself optionality, and that means you need to keep, you need to try different solutions that are out there, see how they apply to different parts of your business, and pay attention to what's happening in the world of AI.
Very well said. All right, Papi. For our listeners that want to learn more about Outshift, about you, about the work that you're doing, or get in touch, what's the best way for them to do that?
We have a website, outshift.com, that lays out all the things that we do within Outshift, our incubation group at Cisco. We also have a newsletter that you can sign up for. within our website. So please go up, check out our website, sign up for our newsletter, and that's the best way to stay in touch with all the exciting work that we are doing. And we'll be making some exciting announcements. This is going to be a public thing. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but this whole Internet of Agents thing, there's more announcements that are going to be coming, and on that front.
Oh, very good. You can't break any of that news for us today, can you?
No, unfortunately not. I'm keeping my powder dry, but it should be happening very soon here.
Very good. Hey, I appreciate it, Papi. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. This was just a fantastic conversation, and I really enjoyed you taking the time to walk us through a lot of the accumulated knowledge that you have, as well as where you're going as an organization and your view for what this future looks like for all of us. So thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Chad. It was a pleasure.
Very good. And for our listeners out there, thank you for tuning into AI for the C-Suite, where we're committed to helping middle market leaders thrive in the exponential age. If you found value in today's discussion, please be sure to subscribe to our podcast, follow us on all the socials except maybe not X, and visit our site, aiforthecsuite.com. Join us next time as we continue to unlock the potential of AI for your organization. And until then, keep your algorithms running, your leadership evolving, and your AI in check. Take care, everybody.